Well, hello all on Saturday, July the 17th at almost 8 o'clock in the morning. I watched this one, the last one? Super late, the last Fear Street movie. Minx did not watch it with me. She's a scaredy cat. Ba-boomps. So yes, I slept all day yesterday. Most of the night. I think I started watching this at like 5 o'clock. It's almost 2 hours, but they need all that time basically because, there's some loose ends to tie up. And then we get the story of, 1666. And then, I don't really feel like this is a spoiler, but we have, we have the lives of our characters that we followed since the first film 2 weeks ago. We have to wrap up their story too. So we actually kind of get like a part two, kind of somewhere like near the middle. So, there's enough time to kind of develop the story of 1666 and then come back and rejoin our characters and, continue their journey on to its final end. How final is it? If you've watched it, I suppose you know. I remember, I'm pretty sure there was like a trilogy of books that dealt with Sarah Fear. I don't necessarily know that I ever read it because I'm kind of one of those people. Like, I hate flashback episodes. I hate. I may have mentioned this before. Like, I hate like prequels. Like, I'm like, I don't care how somebody became a badass. I just want to see them be the badass that they are. You know what I mean? So like, the first part was, but it's kind of developing the story, and once again, we get to see elements, that have been a part of the story the entire time, like the moss. We get to see somebody living in the witch house. We get I'm not totally sure on this one, so don't quote me on it. But I think the axe that she uses, I think might be the Nightwing Killer's axe that he uses, but I don't know. I don't know. There was something visually that looked familiar about it, but I don't necessarily know that that's. So while I don't know I don't know how true to the story of Sarah Fear it stayed, but there again, if I remember correctly, she was tried for being a witch, and then she put a curse on the land and whatever, and blah blah blah. So, it might have been a very basic story, and they added in some things. Well, maybe in the 1990s, maybe a young teen, maybe adding in the homosexual elements might not have been, like, oh, well, we'll let you murder all these children, but don't make any of them gay, kind of thing, like, I don't really remember any characters blatantly being gay in any of in the Fear Street books. But maybe there again, it's kind of one of those things, might not have flown back then necessarily. I remember, what year was it that Ellen came out on had her character come out on her TV show, and her sitcom. That was a big deal back then, whatever year that was. So that might have been mixed in there somewhere where the Fear Street books were. But it was an element that was interesting to add to the story because it gave it a little bit more, I guess, than necessarily just like she was hanged for being a witch and that was it, kind of thing. Like it added a little extra depth to it, I suppose. The one thing that I do wish, and it's I think it's just me being nitpicky, is there's a character that kind of goes a little mad, and we don't get to see much of this character not being mad. Maybe one more scene. I don't know. Like, it was just kind of like, well, this character goes mad, and it's kind of like, it's supposed to be so out of character for this person, but we don't really know that because we didn't get to see much of them being not mad, not crazy, and it's kind of like, oh, they're possessed by the witch, whatever, blah 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 blah. So, like I said, maybe one more scene, a scene and a half, something with this character being, normal, like not possessed by the witch. I don't know, that might have helped me maybe in that situation. But it's kind of one of those things, like, I guess in the end it didn't really matter, because I mean, it's kind of what kicked off the story in some ways, you know. So I mean, an important element like that, I would think that would be developed better, but it's okay. It's what needed to happen, so it did, supposedly, kind of thing. And it's just kind of like, I mean, how many? Some of it, once again, was very convenient. Like, if you find this crazy book with all this weird stuff in it, maybe don't start reading a passage from it. You know, like the typical. I said typical. Typical horror movie dumbass bullshit. Like, just maybe don't do it. Just maybe don't do it. I don't know. But it's cool. Whatever. You know, maybe the devil was already there. The devil was already listening and just waiting. In some ways, well, I it didn't quite, like 1666. You know, they're back in the whole like, oh, burn the witch kind of days. I was kind of hoping for more. There was a series on TV called Salem, and it dealt with that a lot better, I think. Of course, it got like 4 seasons, and with this, it was like an hour into a movie that we were trying to develop a story that kind of, you know, and Salem kind of got its own thing. But they do that old English kind of like wordage, verbiage, however you want to put it, and like some of the insults on that show, even though it's not like, you know, it's kind of like almost Shakespearean speech. It's kind of like, I mean, they do some really good insults on that show. Like that Salem was very well written, and it didn't give a shit about your feelings. Fair warning, if you've never watched that show, it doesn't give a shit about your feelings. So I don't know. Like I said, that was kind of more, I guess, you know. Of course, this was rated R. I mean, I guess it could have, you know, but they were more concerned about telling the story of Sarah Fear and kind of blah 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 blah. So I mean, it kind of develops. I mean, I guess there's some supernatural elements there that help kind of keep the story like interesting and dramatic and a little bit tense and a little bit scary, you know. But there again, we are kind of like, we kind of, I don't know, maybe that's just me. Like, we kind of know what happens, so we're just kind of waiting for it to happen. Like, where do we where do we get to this point, you know, kind of thing. And then we do eventually get there, and then we catch up with our characters in the present. You know, the present of the universe of the movie being 1994, and they're given plenty of time to. It's not a rush job. It's not at all. Like I said, this movie is almost 2 hours long, and I feel the time split between the two was sufficient. I mean, I didn't feel cheated at the end by how much time we got to wrap up these characters' stories, you know. And actually, a character that's been there. I mean, I suppose maybe this is a spoilery thing, but like a character that's been there this entire time actually got to be a little bit more prominent in this film during this last, you know, hour, 45-ish minutes, however long it is, that we get of the film back in 1994, dealing with these characters. So I think, like I said, it explained the story of where the things came from. I don't, well, I mean, I guess it was okay. I don't know. I was trying to think if I wanted a little bit more, but I mean, like I said, I felt like the 1994 stuff was actually dealt with very well. I didn't feel like it was a rush job. You know, it's just kind of like, well, now we got to wrap this shit up. You know, like we've told the Sarah Fear story. You know, so I was pleasantly happy with how much time we got with the characters that we've been following for, you know, 2 previous films now. To get their story wrapped up in a nice little bow, in a way, one way or another. And I mean, and you know, I mean, I mean, I suppose this is a bit spoilery too, but it's like, it's a horror franchise, and it's a franchise of anything. Like, you know, if it does well, they're going to want to keep it going. They're going to want to make more movies. So, you know, don't count our curse out yet, kind of thing, you know. But is it a curse? Is it something else? We don't know. Well, I mean, you do if you've watched the movie, you know. Um, so, yeah, I'm trying to like not say too much, I guess, supposedly. But yeah, it's like I do hope this goes over well. It was interesting to follow because, like I said, it's like, for the three movies now, and it was kind of interesting, like in the past, well, and in like some of the ghosts, spoilers, I suppose. There's cameos by other ghosts in 1994. So it's like, it was interesting to see this mix of the two, because, in 1666, all the characters are played by our performers from the previous two movies. So it's like you get to see people who maybe have died, in a different role, kind of like American Horror Story kind of thing, you know. So it was kind of this mix of 1994 and 78. Wasn't the Nightwing stuff in 78, I think. So we kind of got to see like a mix of all of these characters and the different things, and I enjoyed the like, oh, because when we see the moss kind of thing, it's like, oh, okay, that's where we remember the moss from the very first movie, and it's like now we get to kind of see like where it came from, and the origin story of the moss, like we get we get everything, so it's got all these little details, and if you rewatch it, you might actually, now that the whole thing has been through, if you go through and rewatch the movies, you might find even more stuff that you didn't see before, maybe, I don't know. But I did enjoy it. I did enjoy all three movies. And I mean, I hope it went over well enough that maybe they can make some more of these. And necessarily, we don't have to follow the same characters every time. Like I said, it could be, because that's the way the books were. They were different characters. There was a couple books that had a sequel to them that dealt with the same characters. And like I said, the Fear Street Seniors kind of had an overarching cast and kind of an over. But a lot of those books were somewhat standalone, even though there was like the overarching characters and kind of the overarching, like the entire senior class is doomed and cursed and whatever and blah blah blah. But each book kind of dealt with its own characters within that class of the seniors. Like I said, sometimes they would be crossovers, but there were certain characters that were in multiple books. But but for the most part, the books themselves were very standalone, very episodic, I guess you'd call it if it was a TV show. So I mean, they could even do like a TV show of Fear Street, just have different characters in every episode, kind of like they did many years ago on Fox for Goosebumps. Like now they can have Netflix can have the adult Fear Street version where it's kind of like a different different characters in each. And I mean, it would be cool, I would think, as a fan to. It's been so many years since I've read any of the books, but if they wanted to take any of the books and adapt them, like make a movie out of them, or make it, make a TV show, make a TV episode out of any of them. Like, I think that would be cool if maybe they started, like maybe adapting some of the books into, I mean, I might have to go reread them to remember exactly, because I've read them in the 90s. Like, these books were all the way back in the 90s. Like, it's been a while since I've read any of them, to remember any of them very well. But yeah, I hope it did well. As a Fear Street fan, I'm walking away from it happy, even though, I don't think it really addressed any of the books. They do make cameos, because we even get B. Dalton. We get I like that B. Dalton is like part of the story and part of the, there's B. Dalton and Walden books, but now it's just Barnes and Noble. But I think Barnes and Noble bought one of them. I don't know, Walden Books or B. Dalton or something. But so it was kind of, I guess, spoke to my teenage years, my childhood in a way. The B. Dalton and the Fear Street and the whatever, and about very nostalgic, I suppose. But as a Fear Street fan, I walked away from it happy, even though, like I said, as far as I know, they didn't really adapt any specific details other than the Sarah Fear story. And I don't even know if I read that one. I think I'm pretty sure there was a trilogy of books that dealt with her story in the past, but if I read them, I don't remember them, so I couldn't really tell you. But and I hope it, like I said, I hope it went over well enough that they will make some more. Either like, and it doesn't have to be another trilogy of movies, even though, like I said, that was cool to get like a three-pronged story, and kind of have these overarching, like, different little tidbits, little details if you were paying attention, kind of thing. Or if they want to make it a series or make more movies or whatever, like Netflix, I will take it in any form or version that you want to give me more of this. I will take it. So anyway, that's the end. The end. Evil bunnies. Anya would agree. The end of our trilogy, the end of what we have for now. If it went over well, maybe we'll get some more. We'll see. If not, I'm happy to finally have some kind of something acknowledging something that was very important to my childhood, kind of thing. I mean, Harry Potter got like movies almost immediately. The little son of a bitch. But not that I'm not jelly. No, not at all. But so it's it's kind of nice to have some movies from that lane, whatever. And hopefully this will lead to more, one way or another. But for now, our trilogy is over, our Fear Street is over, and that's the book is closed on this one, at least. So, haha, that was not an intentional pun, but of course, it fell right out of my mouth anyway. So, yeah, that's about it. Right, Minx? Minx says right. But anyway, there's plenty of other videos that I've got to put together that I've never done, even though I shoved pickled eggs in my mouth and still regret it. So, I was going to do one yesterday, but then, like I said, I ended up falling asleep and not getting anything accomplished. So, what else is new? But anyway, I would say Fear Street fan, check out the movies. Horror movie fan, I mean, it's an interesting experience all along the way, like I said. I don't necessarily know that the mysteries are all that. I mean, it's still sometimes it was able to surprise me with some of its details, But, I think they were good, solid films, all three of them together. So, anyway, that's the end of the Fear Street trilogy, at least for now. And I will see you for what I see you.